bonded to him. And, you know, so that's where his mind started the wheels started turning. So verse 8, this made Saul very angry. What's this, he said. They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands. Next, they'll be making him their king. So from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. Well, there he purposed in his heart. It's a choice. To operate in the works or the performance of the flesh is a choice we make. We either walk in the Spirit and we won't fulfill the lusts of the flesh, or we choose to give ourselves over to those things. And Saul that day chose to do that. Verse 10, the very next day, a tormenting spirit from God overwhelmed Saul, and he began to rave in his house like a madman. And David was playing the harp as he did each day, but Saul had a spear in his hand, and he suddenly hurled it at David, intending to pin him to the wall, but David escaped him twice. And the rest, I'm sure you're all familiar with that story. He ran from Saul, you know, and hid from Saul most of his time, all because of jealousy. I believe that. You know, it was all rooted in jealousy. And always with jealousy will come anger and hatred, as a murdering spirit goes along with jealousy and envy. And there's different degrees. It's what what you give yourself to. But so, I mean, also if we look at Saul there, imagination is another thing that plays a big part with jealousy and envy. Your imagination will just go hog wild, especially in relationships. You know, nothing worse when you start imagining that your spouse is looking at a woman, or, you know, I mean, it's common amongst women, you know. But if you allow your imagination to just play out everything, trust me, I know what I'm talking about, and I'll share my testimony. But it will take you into a place that is reality. That really isn't reality, but it is. And if you stay there, it will destroy your marriage. It will destroy friendships, whatever the case may be. It is a destructive spirit. And again, it does. It's the imagination. It's what's between the ears. So envy is wanting something that someone else has. And I think also it can be you think that you can do better than them. Whether it be in a job, a ministry, a relationship, whatever. I think that would go along with envy too. Jealousy, however, is described as the fear of losing something to someone else. It seeks to prevent loss. We can have jealousy or envy of another's possessions, position, authority, recognition, abilities, looks, accomplishments, relationships, and good fortune. And you know, one thing about women, I think that, well, maybe I shouldn't put us all in that category, but maybe some of us, we compare ourselves with each other. You know, especially in today's society, the way we live, you know, the things that are out there. My heart goes out to a lot of the young generation, because they're driven to look at what's so important. You know, looks are so important, weight is so important, and I mean, weight is important, especially health-wise, but not to accept who you are or to love who you are. And I think that's really one of the biggest things, is that when we see, and I touched on this back last September, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are his works, you know, that his thoughts towards us are awesome. He created us like a woven piece of work, you know, intricately, you know, designed us, that we should love ourselves. And if we compare ourselves with one another, then we're not really loving ourselves. We're not loving who God has created us to be. Amen? So I know all too well what these two monsters, and that's what they are, they're monsters. I know what they're like to live with. And today I can freely talk about them. I can freely give my testimony as a testimony of triumph and not defeat, because God delivered me from both of them. And I'm just going to briefly share with you, because I know I'm going to be able to relate to one, maybe more than one, but I believe jealousy starts at an early age. I believe it starts at childhood. And again, I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm speaking from my own life. I can think as far back as when it did affect my life. And some of this might be comical, but the truth is, some of it, when I share what I share, is pretty serious stuff. When I think about it, I mean, you can laugh at it, but, you know, and I do laugh at it now, but I don't know. Anyway, when I was a little girl, I was very protective of my father. It wasn't healthy, a lot of the way I was, but if we would go to Christmas parties, like my parents were drinkers, you know, I wasn't raised in a Christian home, but we'd go to parties, and I wouldn't go play with the other kids. I would go and sit, and if I did go play with the other kids, I would run in and out of the room where the parents were partying, and I would watch and make sure that my dad was behaving himself. And there was a time that my mother, she's the one who laughs at this, but she got these, it was in the, you know, the late 60s, she got these lime green, because that was a big color back then, a lime green baby doll pajamas. And I would not let her wear them to bed. Now, like when you think about that, that's pretty serious stuff. I wasn't abused or anything, don't get me wrong, but that was the possession that I had and the jealousy I had with my dad. And I still really to this day don't understand it, but I know I'm delivered from it. But my mother had these pajamas and I took them out of her drawer and I hid them. I thought she will not wear these in front of, you know, what baby dolls are, right? They had the little pants. So, you know, I got teased all my life with that and never fully understanding it, but that was just some of where it came from. So I grew up very possessive of my dad, and which then came into my adulthood, which came into relationships, because that's whatever starts in your childhood, you will live it out. I don't care what anybody says, you will live it out in your adulthood. So I became very, I dealt with a lot of self-rejection and low self-esteem, all of that. But anyway, the jealousy stayed with me into my first marriage, which, again, almost destroyed it. That's not what ended my first marriage, but it was there very strong, and my imagination played a big part of that. So anyway, it wasn't until I got married to Rob, and there was never any reason, still is to this day, for me to ever experience any jealousy with Rob. But if anything manifested or reared its ugly head like it did, it was that first year that I married Rob. And when I look back, usually there's always a storm before the calm. And without getting into all the detail, it would manifest in me, and I would imagine things, and I would accuse him of things. And then I'd go cry, and I'd be just devastated, and I'd think, why did I say that? Why did I do that? And truthfully, it did almost destroy my marriage. It really did. And that was the day I decided to lock myself. We had a lock on our bedroom door, and I locked myself in my bedroom. And I said to God, I am not coming out of here until you set me free, because I know that what I'm experiencing, and there were other things that at that time that God had set me free from. And I did. I was probably in my room all day, and I did not come out. I cried, and I cried. The neighbors probably heard there were these high-pitched cryings coming out of me. And I seriously believe I was delivered, because I came out of that room, and Rob will tell you to this day, it'll be 11 years, that I'm a different woman. Something happened. An encounter with God happened. And when you are determined to deal with this flesh creature, you will see a deliverance. You will see a manifestation of His glory in your life. So anyways, I came out, and that was that. I never had to deal with that jealousy again. Up until we moved to Belmont, and we stopped going to church, and then we started going to a little church, and we went there for about a year. The Lord had told me that that's where He had wanted me to go. Well, Rob wasn't too sure, but then we prayed, and he, I think out of love and so forth, he just followed me. So we went, and it was a friend of mine, a woman pastor, who I admire, I love, and she's very gifted, and we kind of, our kids grew up together and, you know, fellowship together and did all sorts of things together.